In this series, we begin with Shakespeare, and you're about to meet an inspiring group of young actors who are devoted to his works. In the process of rehearsing and picking apart a character, each had to delve into aspects of mental health. And with the help of a bard-loving therapist, they learned how empathy and the power of Shakespeare's words can connect us to important truths about ourselves. Maybe it's not a total surprise, but Shakespeare introduced his audience to PTSD, traumatic grief, depression, questions about identity, even body-based trauma, that and more over 400 years ago. We think it's never too late to learn new things about mental wellness from a creative force who never seems to get old.
What sayest thou, Kate? What wouldst thou have with me?
Do you not love me?
Plays and characters can help us better understand ourselves.
Love thee not, care not for thee.
Shakespeare writes his plays to show people parts of themselves that they didn't know they had.
Pagan rascal is this, infidel.
Shakespeare understood people. His plays offer a lot of insight on mental health.
I have often heard my mother say that I was brought into this world with legs forward.
The midwife wondered and cried out, "Jesu, bless us, it's born with teeth!"
The way Shakespeare wrote and his language and the words he chose to use offers many outlets for people to understand mental health on different levels.
And then I loved thee. I showed thee all the qualities of the isle, fresh springs, brine pits, barren place, and fertile.
Through Shakespeare, I can delve into deeper truths about myself that maybe I'm not crazy about exploring, but I know I should.
Shakespeare's the guy that brought the flawed characters and the ones with the very human problems. I mean, look at Hamlet, look at Macbeth. It's like these people were suffering from things that people in England amongst the living would lapse into these states because they were untreated.
My brother is in Elysium. Perchance he is not drowned.
One thing we see with traumatized individuals is that trauma disconnects and healing reconnects. One thing we see with creativity is it's all about connection. It's all about seeing connections that no one has ever seen before. That's what Shakespeare did.
Thy spirit within thee hath been so at war, and thus hath so bestirred thee in thy sleep that beads of sweat have stood upon thy brow like bubbles in a late disturbed stream.
To me, it just has always seemed very obvious that why not look at the person who is the most creative with our language to see how we can heal. I'm really excited to be here with all of you today. Part of the reason I'm so excited is we get to talk not only about you specifically as actors and kind of how you work, how you tick, but also just the creative process in general, and also my particular expertise, mental health. And so want to kind of ask you and start this conversation tonight with why mental health? Why Shakespeare? Why does it speak to each one of you? What about Shakespeare, mental health, and these particular pieces speak to you not only as actors, but as people?
I personally was into this project because I feel that Shakespeare is a universal language, and it could speak to anyone and everyone, and it is constantly done, and it's very easy to overlook some of the very serious issues that are in these Shakespeare plays. And it's really important, especially if we're going to continue to put life into these timeless works, that we bring honesty to the characters and we also fit it into the modern day lens as well. So I think that's why I was attracted to the Shakespeare in correlation with the mental health.
Oh yeah, I think that especially, and the specific pieces that we chose, when you are demonstrating real life examples or versions of mental health, but you do it with a specific language, and then you bring actors into it. Once we get into that rehearsal process and we start understanding it, the dots kind of all connect. And sometimes with Shakespeare, what we're saying can be a little bit different, but once you sort of connect the language and you start to understand that, you get a good picture and a good sense of the mental side of it with how we're feeling and what we're saying.
We, as actors, did go into this project with the intent of finding the issues of mental health we can relate to with these characters, but I think someone maybe not interested in the theater would watch a show or read the play and be like, wait, that sounds like something I would say, or like, hey, that sounds like something I've heard say before. Yeah, I get that, I feel that, and I think that's kind of where we don't necessarily look for things to explain, for explanations, but we find them. You hear Leonard Cohen Hallelujah, that can make someone feel a billion different ways. So when you're reading Shakespeare, I'm like, one person might take it one way, one person might take it the other way, but it is finding it our own definitions, our own relations to him.
I'm drawn to this just because I want to find out more for myself. I mean, maybe that's selfish, but even being able to deeply find out more about the characters that I got to work on and then learn from you about that is just, I think everyone can benefit from that. Mental health is also just something that, is also timeless. Like, it's not something that just came up now. So to take a piece that is so dated to see how that connects to how we as humans feel still to this day is just awesome to think about, and I think that is important to talk about,
And it sounds like one of the key points y'all are emphasizing is it's something that it's universal because it allows that self-discovery. And it allows it, and that the words cannot be excised from that's such a powerful point. Am I getting that right?
Yes, they are molded together. You can't separate the two. The language, especially for us, helps us get into all of that stuff.
In Henry IV, Part 1, Harry Percy, known as Hotspur because of his battle-tested intensity and fiery temper, is obsessed with avenging his family's name by taking down the king, and he plans a rebellion against the monarch. Unsure of who he can trust, it's apparent these trust issues include his relationship with Kate, his wife, a marriage now lacking openness and intimacy. As Harry is all consumed by thoughts of war and vengeance, we witness as Kate bravely attempts to break through and help mend her husband's troublesome emotional state. It's clear Shakespeare understood the fragile nature of what we now know as PTSD.
The purpose you undertake is dangerous. The friends you have named uncertain, the time itself unsorted, in your whole plot too light for the counterpoise of so great an opposition. Say you so? Say you so? I say you are a shallow, cowardly hind, and you... What a lack brain is this? By the Lord, our plot is a good plot as ever was laid. Our friends true and constant and full of expectation. An excellent plot, very good friends. Is there not my father, my uncle, and myself? Lord Edmund Mortimer, my Lord of York, and Owen Glendower? Have I not all their letters to meet me in arms by the 9th of next month? And are they not some of them set forward already? Pagan rascal is this. An infidel. You shall see now in very sincerity of fear and cold heart will he to the king and lay open all our proceedings. We'll hang him. Let him tell the king. We are prepared. I will set forward tonight. How now, Kate? I must leave you within these 2 hours.
Oh my good Lord, why are you thus alone? For what offense have I this fortnight been a banished woman from my Harry's bed? Tell me. Sweet Lord, what is it that takes from thee thy stomach, pleasure, and thy golden sleep? Why dost thou bend thine eyes upon the earth and start so often when thou sitt'st alone? Why hast thou lost the fresh blood in thy cheeks and given up my treasures and my rights to thee to thick-eyed musing and cursed melancholy? In thy faint slumbers I by thee have watched and heard thee murmur tales of iron wars. Speak terms of manage to thy bounding steed, cry courage to the field. And thou hast talked of sallies and retires, of trenches, tents, of palisadoes, frontiers, parapets, of basilics, of cannon, culverin, of prisoners' ransom, and of soldiers slain, and all the currents of a heady fight. Thy spirit within thee hath been so at war, and thus hath so bestirred thee in thy sleep that beads of sweat have stood upon thy brow like bubbles in a late disturbed stream, and in thy face strange motions have appeared, such as we see when men restrain their breath on some great sudden What portents are these? Some heavy business hath my lord in hand, and I must know it, else he loves me not.
Sirrah! Fetch me my horse, lead him forth to the park.
But hear you, my lord.
What sayest thou, my lady?
What is it carries you away?
Why, my horse, my love, my horse.
Out, you mad-headed ape! A weasel hath not such a deal of spleen as you are tossed with. In faith, I'll know your business, Harry. I fear my brother Mortimer doth stir about his title and hath sent for you to line his enterprise, but if you go...
I'm so far afoot, I shall be weary, love.
Come, you parakeeto, answer me directly unto this question that I ask. In faith, I'll break thy little finger, Harry, if thou wilt not tell me all things true.
Away! Away, you trifler. Love? I love thee not. I care not for thee. This is no world to play with mammoths and to tilt with lips. We must have bloody noses and cracked crowns and pass them current too. God's me, where's my horse?
What sayest thou, Kate? What wouldst thou have with me?
Do you not love me? Do you not indeed? Well, do not then, for since you love me not, I will not love myself. Do you not love me? Nay, tell me if you speak in jest or no.
Come. Wilt thou see me off? And when I am on horseback, I swear I will love thee infinitely. But hark you, Kate. I must not have you henceforth question me, whither I go, nor reason whereabout. Whither I must, I must. And to conclude this evening must I leave you, gentle Kate. I know you wise, but yet no further wise than Harry Percy's wife. Thou wilt not utter what thou dost not know. And so far will I trust thee, gentle Kate.
How so far?
Not an inch further. But hark you, Kate. Whither I go, thither shall you go too. Today will I set forth, tomorrow you. Will this content you, Kate?
It must of force.
One of the things I thought was fascinating that you and Kendra played was the PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, which it was a diagnosis made for military. You did something that when I worked at the Veterans Administration with veterans, that just to me was kind of one of the nucleic parts of it. I call it the wall. There was a massive wall that came up in the scene, you and Lady Percy, and I'm wondering how did you tap into that part of the wall? How were you able to make that so effective and just so it just seemed very genuine?
Yes. So, I kind of related the militariness to sports for me. A war with one side and another side, you have two teams. How would I feel as the captain of my team, the leader of my team, if somebody on my team decided one day, hey, I'm not going to show up to the game because I think that our team actually sucks? I would be pretty upset. I'm a pretty competitive guy. I played sports in high school and I put myself in that mindset. So, as I was reading the letter and getting into the scene and building that emotional wall, I was thinking about that, about, the betrayal and how I'm going to deal with this now. So it was really easy to be on that other side of the wall because that's all I was thinking about. And it's funny because Kendra was effective in some tactics to get through. And, whenever we had those moments, as Hotspur, I had to then build the wall back up.
Yeah, there's something you said that reminded me of something one of the veterans I worked with, Iraq veteran, because it connects kind of what you were saying. And what that veteran said was, war is ruthless, and we have to be ruthless in protecting our own. And the context that he said that in was he was married, his marriage was falling apart, and his wife, kind of like Lady Percy, wanted to get connection, and he was not mean or violent, but just cold was the word that kept coming up that his wife would say. Very cold. He's a cold man. And when I asked him about that in a session, he said, war is ruthless. We have to be ruthless in protecting our own. As the spouse in that scene, how is that ruthlessness coming through? I thought the tactics you did not only were, effective within the scene, but also they seemed organic from a psychologist perspective, having worked with veterans and their partners. It seemed really effective, like a real genuine expression of what it would be like to be married to somebody with PTSD.
I feel like I didn't notice, maybe a couple times. I rarely noticed the times that I would get through to Chris as Harry. And there did come a point where the director did speak to me and was like, okay, what other tactic? And just like thinking from a perspective of like me and being put in this situation, I was like, I have no idea, like, what else? I can cry, I can yell, I could touch him, and if it's not working, it's not working. And it really, I think, put my mind into perspective of people who go through this, and just that helplessness. She's not just mad, she's helpless. And I think it's even written in that line where he's like, love, like, this is about cracking skulls, and like, this is what it's about, because war is brutal. And in order to go through it, you have to protect yourself, whether it's a tactic like that. You have to protect the people you love, whether it means you have to go back out there and do it again. What this person had said to you definitely rings true, or at least has proven in a scene like that.
And within that same case that I was referencing, talking with the spouse to wife, she said, it's like I've lost him twice. Like I lost him when he went to war, and then I lost him when he came back from war.
She says a line actually, where she says, and in your face strange motions have appeared. And basically saying like, you aren't the same. Like I look at you and I don't see you anymore. Like you're gone. I actually have heard that saying a lot. And I think with this scene, it's definitely, I think that's why this scene happened. It was because, it was a dire need to get him, to see him again at least once, or to get him to see her. I think personally why this connected with me so much is I've seen people I love and care about just deteriorate. It's really hard, especially if you don't know why. So I think that it also was not just a good way to showcase somebody who was going through something untreated, untalked about, something that people very much deal with today, but also how it can affect the people closest to them.
In Twelfth Night, A young woman named Viola faces traumatic circumstances and must find her way in a new life, one she did not plan on. Soon after her father dies, the ship transporting she and her twin brother to a new home is hit by a terrible storm. She barely survives drowning and believes her brother is lost at sea. At her most vulnerable, her lowest point, she is helped by a kind sailor. In what appears tragic, Shakespeare instead shows us a young woman's bravery and resilience.
What country friend is this?
This is Illyria, lady.
And what should I do in Illyria? My brother is in Elysium. Perchance he is not drowned. What think you, sailor?
It was perchance that you yourself were saved.
My poor brother. So perchance may he be.
Aye. It's true, madam. And to comfort you with chance, rest assured that after our ship did split, I saw your brother, most provident in peril, bind himself, courage and hope, teaching him the practice to a strong mast that lived upon the sea, where like Arion on the dolphin's back, he held acquaintance with the waves, for as long as I could see.
For saying so, there's gold. Mine own escape unfoldeth to my hope, whereto thy speech serves for authority the like of him.
Now, keep it.
Knowest thou this country?
Aye, madam, well. I was bred and born not 3 hours' travel from this very place.
Who governs here?
Noble Duke, in nature as in name.
What's the name?
Orsino.
Orsino. I have heard my father name him. He was a bachelor then.
And so is now. Nor was so very late, for but a month ago I went from hence, and then 'twas fresh in murmur that he did seek the love of fair Olivia.
What's she?
Virtuous maid, daughter of a count, who died some 12 months hence, and leaving her in the protection of his son, a brother who shortly also died. For whose dear love, they say, she hath abjured the company and sight of men.
Oh, that I served that lady, and might not be delivered to the world till I made mine own occasion mellow what my estate is.
That were hard to compass, for she will admit no kind of suit, no, not even the Duke's.
There's fair behavior in thee, captain. I prithee, and I'll pay thee bounteously. Conceal me what I am and be my aid. For such disguise shall haply become the form of my intent. I'll serve this Duke. Thou shalt present me as a man to him. This will allow me very worth his service. What else may hap to time I will commit, only shape thou thy silence to my wit.
Your mute I'll be, and when my tongue blads, let mine eyes not see.
I thank thee. Lead me on.
Viola and the Sailor, to me, a pretty classic grief reaction, because that's a kind of a different type of reaction to trauma and adversity. And so just kind of general thoughts on playing that part.
It was interesting getting Viola, or deep diving on it, because at first glance it's a comedy, and most people know it as a comedy because, you know, the whole play is basically a comedy. And so the opening scene with Viola is actually very tragic. Her father's dead. She believes her brother's dead. She just was in a shipwreck. She almost drowned. And so she just feels lost and alone. And it wasn't until someone else came and kind of pushed her out of that she was able to find out how to continue her life and her story. And I loved working on it because it gave me a sense of, you know, how you can be there for someone else when you find that they're in grief. And I think I actually related more to the captain than Viola, because I feel like I need to be more of a support system for people in life. And I think it's important for all of us to know that maybe people just need someone there.
One thing that struck me was the sailor, like, and you mentioned this, Kelsey, the sailor does probably a Shakespearean therapy session essentially in that scene. And that also seemed like, as a person who does a lot of grief work, it seemed really effective and very supportive, but also not super minimizing, like, it's going to be okay, Viola, everything's all right.
First of all, she finds that the sailor's words of him being honest with her and upfront about, you know, because she asks, you know, like once she finds out that, oh, maybe there's some hope for her brother, because he does sugarcoat that a little bit. And that's helpful because he's being honest. He goes, I did see your brother. We didn't see him drown, so it doesn't mean he's gone. And that is that glimmer, like, well, yeah, well, I survived, so maybe he survived, you know, and that's number one. But then, you know, he keeps gaining her trust by just, you know, not saying everything's going to be okay, but, you know, now she can have a conversation with him, and now there's a connection between her and that person, and it's not just about her brother anymore, not just about her father. It's about someone now who's just there for her, and another person that could now be for her. And the part where she discovers that she wants to dress up like a man, she says, I trust you. And I think that we need people in our lives that we can trust. And now she has someone else to grasp onto and to help her. And here's just the next step forward. You know, you don't have to sit here on the sand crying your eyes out. You can go meet someone or connect with someone, you know?
The Tempest takes place on a remote island in some distant past where a number of lives have been turned upside down. There we meet Caliban, a native island dweller who is made servant and slave to Prospero, a banished duke with magic-like powers, who single-handedly raised his now teenage daughter Miranda. Here, Miranda watches as Caliban, both a victim and perpetrator in Shakespeare's final play, shares his feelings of loss, love, and betrayal, even in the face of her father's harsh punishments.
Bordeaux, slave, Caliban. Thou earth, thou speak. Come forth, I say. Upon thy wicked dam come forth!
As wicked do as ere my mother brushed with raven's feather from unwholesome pen, drop on you both. The southwest blow on you and blister you all.
And for this be sure tonight thou shalt have cramps, side stitches that shall pin thy breath up. Urchins shall for that fast of night that they may work all exercise on thee. Thou shalt be pinched as thick as honeycomb, each pinch more stinging than the bees that made them.
This island's mine. My Sycorax, my mother, which thou takest from me. When thou camest first, thou strokest me, madest much of me. Wouldst give me water with berries in it, and teach me how to name the bigger light, nevertheless, that burn by day and night. And then I loved thee. I showed thee all the qualities of the isle, the fresh springs, brine pits, barren place, and fertile. Cursed be I that did so. All the charms of Sycorax, toads, beetles, bats light on you. For I am all the subject that you have, which first was mine own king, and here you sty me in this hard rock, while you do keep from me the rest of the island.
Most lying slave, whom strips may move, not kindness. I have used thee, filth as thou art, with human care, and lodged thee in mine own cell, till thou didst seek to violate the honor of my child.
When it had been done, thou didst prevent me. I had peopled else's isle with Caliban.
Horrid slave!
I pitied thee, took pains to make thee speak, taught thee one thing each hour. When thou didst not know thine own meaning, I endowed thy purposes with words that made them known.
But thy vile race, though thou didst learn, had that in it which good natures could not abide to be with. Therefore was thou deservedly confined into this rock, when thou hadst deserved more than a prison.
You taught me language, and my profit on is I know how to curse. The red plague rid you for teaching me your language!
Exceed! Hence! Fetch us in fuel, and be quick. If thou neglectest, or dost unwillingly what I command, I'll rack thee with old crabs, fill all thy bones with eggs, make thee roar. The beasts shall tremble at thy din.
No, pray thee. I will obey.
So, slave, hence.
I shouldn't have a favorite character in Shakespeare, but with this project, Caliban is something I had. So I want.
You guys, I'm the favorite.
Wow. You're
I'm the
favorite character. And so you are a character. And so that tells a little bit about just some general thoughts about playing that, especially that piece for Caliban and that character in The Tempest.
Well, the scene is his introduction scene, the first time we meet Caliban. And typically a production would portray Caliban as the villain. At the beginning of the play, Caliban, who was living on the island beforehand, had lost his mother. And then, so we find the second family with Prospero and Miranda. And then through certain actions which aren't exactly clear. He loses that second family. And now he's also losing his home. Prospero's kind of taken over the island. So he's just going through, and kind of like Viola has just lost so much. He's just a very sad, lonely creature who just wants to have a home, people to love him. And he's being constantly berated and attacked by his former father figure, now his master, in a kind of a slave-master relationship. And you're just constantly seeing him get beaten down, and you see him try to just, in his scene, try to fight against it. And as someone myself who has dealt with certain trauma in his life, and never really having that drive to fight back, and just having to really in the moment feel all that pain that Caliban's going through, and trying to not let it affect me so much personally and stay within the scene was a challenge for me. It was kind of a way for me to also kind of get it out of my system at the same time.
Yeah. One ththing that fascinated me as I was doing this project was, oh my God, Caliban has complex trauma. Caliban was betrayed. Caliban was there, and that's a betrayal is a big part of a lot of the kids I work with complex trauma. Like their biological parents specifically will betray them and hurt them, and that's the person you're supposed to trust the most. And it seemed that parallel with kids I have who their biological parents are abusing them for years at a time, and then Prospero and Caliban, where Caliban, there was pre-existing supposed to be that relationship of trust.
Building trust with someone can be an enormous task, be it with a complete stranger like Viola does with the sailor, or with your parent, because you just assume you're supposed to trust them because they're your parents. They raise you. They show you right from wrong. They show you not to touch hot stove. They show you don't put that in your mouth. You think, okay, they know what's best for me. I should always listen to them. And then all of a sudden, what's best for me is to not be anywhere near them. And also bringing back that kind of question of worth. What is he now if he's not the son, the pet? I think a reason why the director chose this role for me specifically is because I discuss a lot about how people who look like me got the short end of the stick a lot. Yeah. So I'm from the Philippines, and we were kind of screwed over by anyone who had a ship. The British, Americans, the Spaniards, because we were told, no, we are less than because we're not white, we're not Christian, we're not proper. So again, what am I?
I think one thing that seems very effective with that scene is, and I hear this a lot even with my kids, is that I'm not human. I'm not a person. I'm not real. I'm not a human being. I'm a monster. And so there's this almost internal dehumanization process, which seems like you capture very effectively as Caliban.
Richard III is one of Shakespeare's most legendary characters, and he's often portrayed as an evil comic book villain. But when we first meet him in the play Henry VI Part 3, before he becomes king, he reveals his buried feelings of being unloved, disrespected, and the outcast of his family, much of that because of physical deformities since birth. In this re-envisioned interpretation of Richard as a woman, we're offered a female perspective on the challenges women face in today's image-conscious and perfectionist culture, and the ongoing struggle to be recognized and valued. Here, the crown becomes a means to identity.
I do but dream on sovereignty. Like one that stands on a promontory and spies a far-off shore where he would tread, wishing his foot were equal with his eye. Chides the sea that sunders him from thence, saying he'll lay it dry to have his way. So do I wish the crown, being so far off, and so I chide the means that keeps me from it. Yet, say there is no kingdom here for Richard, What other pleasure can the world afford? Make my heaven in a lady's lap. Deck my body in gay ornaments. Bewitch sweet ladies with my words and looks. Miserable thought. More unlikely than to accomplish 20 golden crowns. Why? Love forsworn me in my mother's womb. So I should not deal in her soft laws. She did corrupt frail nature with some bribe to shrink mine arm up like a withered shrub, to make an envious mountain on my back where sits deformity to mock my body, shape my legs of unequal size to disproportion me in every part like to a chaos, or unlicked bear whelp that carries no impression like the dam. Then am I a thing to be beloved? Monstrous fault to harbor such a thought. I often hear my mother say that I was brought into this world with legs forward. And the midwife wondered and cried out, "Oh, Jesu, bless us, it's born with teeth!" And so I was, which plainly signified that I should snarl and bite and play the dog. Since the heavens have shaped my body so, let hell make crooked my mind to answer it! I have no brother. I am like no brother. In this word, love, which graybeards call divine, be resident in men like one another and not in me. I am myself alone. And I will make my heaven to dream upon the ground.
Now, one of the characters that I will be honest, I did not really appreciate until this project and working on this was Richard. And so I would really love if you would, Kelsey, talk about what that experience was like for you.
Well, the director and I had gone back and forth many times, whether the typical way when a female plays Richard is to do it a more, like her as a man, like androgynous very much. But one day we just had this epiphany, like, how about we do it as a woman? And I had said at the beginning of the project that, I really relate to Richard in a lot of sense because of the way that I as a woman feel in today's society, and just like this pressure that I have to look like something or hold myself to this standard. And so, we just kind of bounced back and forth and we're like, let's do it as woman, because I think that it's something that a lot of women need to hear these days, is that you struggle, you look at yourself in the mirror and you see all these things that's wrong with you and you can't get it out of your head, and you feel like you have to put all your self-worth into something else. And for Richard, that was power. Like, he wanted the crown so much because that was what he was holding on to for his self-worth. And I think that a lot of women do that.
2 questions in any order you want to answer them, Kelsey. One is the aspect of that other side of the spectrum, which we'd call like over restricting or like over performing or however you want to call it, like, this is my worth. The real world example is the person who, graduates high school, valedictorian at 17, gets their bachelor's at 20, law degree at 25, partner at 30, and suicidal at 32. The other aspect is a lot of trauma is very body-based. whether that's a sexual assault is one of the paradigmatic ones, but even something like neglect where you're starving, you always feel it in your body when you're hungry, and it never goes away for some of us. And so those are kind of my two questions about Richard, is the over-restricting the crown, that's his identity, or at least within that scene. The other one is just the way the body plays in, disability plays in to someone with that kind of trauma.
You know, there's so many people above him that can get the crown before him, so his only worth is like, oh, I need to step up a ladder to show that I'm worth it to myself. You know, he blames his disabilities on other people too, and he says that, you know, like my mom, like the midwife, like cried out that it was like a demon coming out of the womb. Like, how do you feel personally if someone tells you that right when you were born, that you're different than everyone else because of the things that are wrong with you? And I feel like that fury just eats at him his whole life. You know, like, I have to mean something more than this monster that people think I am. And it turns into this like fury and aggression that's the opposite of like shutting down. It's like acting upon it, you know, and turns into killing and very aggressive behavior because that's all he really knows how to handle it, you know.
That was a beautiful answer in part, because in my head at least, I don't think they're separate. I think they're connected. I'm always fascinated with the way Shakespeare portrays monstrosity. What are kind of your thoughts on how Richard is creating identity or not? That's also a possibility. Like, no, he's actually not creating identity. He's having trouble with that, or actually he's trying to create a stable identity in the face of people telling him he's a monster.
I mean, he's definitely trying to make an identity because he has a clear end point. Like, there's an end goal, is like, get the crown. And once I get that, that is it. And so it just becomes obsessive for him. And like, really that is his worth. Like, that is his end goal. Just like some people's end goal is like, oh, maybe this one thing that I do different with my body, or this picture that I take, or this amount of following, or how many likes, or this job I get or don't get, like, that is the end goal. And you think that once you get there, you'll be happy, but you don't even know if you will, you know? And it's that obsessive goal that I think is what drives the character.
Part of having trauma is wanting to escape, wanting to not talk about it, not be around it. I tell people PTSD is the only diagnosis you got to not want to talk about. It's literally part of the diagnosis. And so I will say I disagree with this argument, but here's the argument. Well, since we don't want people to escape, like that's part of, you want you to confront your trauma, confront your, adversity. Theater, this is Shakespeare stuff, is escapism. That's all it is. It's just we're escaping. You're just going into another world or another person, so that you're really not dealing with your stuff. You're just doing another escape thing. It's escapist. How would you respond to that?
I mean, coming from someone who worked on it personally, I mean, I felt like it was my own therapy session when I went into rehearsal, because I had to deal with the parts of myself that I don't really want to talk about. Like, even the first day of rehearsal, I said way too much information about my own insecurities. And I mean, I felt better because I escaped with the language. I allowed the words to feed me, but at the same time, I was able to find comfort in the fact that there's a relationship with how I feel and the words of the story. So it's not necessarily escaping, it's escaping to find yourself, if that makes sense. Like a portal.
Okay, so as an actor who has used being busy and acting as escapism, I sure have. It's hard to answer without like making it seem like that is what it is, but I think that it really does like prove to that point. I mean, Shakespeare is meant to discover things about you. You're never going to take a character and not like see something, but as an audience, maybe with trauma, I guess I'm just having a hard time, because if it's a situation where they're seeing their trauma played out, that isn't escaping.
That would be my point, is like, it's not an escape if every single Shakespeare show has some sort of mental health, right? So if we start with that, there's no way you can escape from it if you're going to that as an outlet, because you are facing the thing that you're dealing with. It's the opposite of escape. You're actually facing those demons. You're facing those emotions, that trauma played through a completely different entity, a different person, a different world, a different language.
You're not necessarily vulnerable, but more open to it, because you are in that mindset of, I'm not here to think about it. I'm here to just relax. But then I think because you're not so focused on trying to build up walls and trying to build up defenses against thinking about it, you're just kind of letting that stuff kind of come in and be like, oh, I just kind of, and watching it all play out.
I don't think that Shakespeare should be considered an escape. It should be considered, for our intent for this project, is to have a way to show someone how to deal with it, instead of either trying to find different ways. Like, this is a way to helping. It's not an escape or a coping mechanism. It's just a way to have some shared experience between a child and the actors and the story and the piece.
A way to create connection with people who feel they have none. I think that it's a way to confront it, not to escape it, and that it provides a way that people who, because one of the things about trauma, those of us who have it and who've lived through it, you never escape it. That's kind of why I think that's such a flawed argument is, no, we're always in it. It's always there. And so I think also one of the things that I heard you hit on as well when you were responding to the question is, it's also a matter of timing too. Like, Shakespeare is going to be there for you. And if you miss it the first time, it'll come back again. And which I think speaks to the importance of this project. As we're kind of getting to the end of our time, which I regret because I love hanging out with you guys, is I'm always very upfront with my history of lived experience. Similar to Dustin's character of Caliban, I resonated with that in a way I don't think I've ever thought I resonated with, just the pain that Caliban has and the betrayal. And so that was something that kind of hit a nerve, really, that I wasn't expecting. And I'm wondering, for each of you as professionals, was there anything like that hit a nerve? And within the characters you were playing, or within the scenes you were doing, or just even in the preparation or the kind of coming out of your character, just any part of this whole process in doing the Shakespeare sessions?
Yeah, as far as Hotspur goes, I felt I connected to him in a couple different ways. One big way that I felt, a strong connection was sort of the relationship dynamic. I have been in, relationships before where, to be honest, maybe I wasn't that present or, there, which is exactly what Hotspur is dealing with. I mean, his head is basically somewhere else, and there's a line that Lady Kate says where, towards the end where she's like, do you not love me? I've had to face that before in a relationship, and it's something that, drew me closer to Kendra and made it a little bit, easier for me to understand and get a little bit into that emotional state.
I, as an actor, as a person, put a lot of pressure on myself. That's what I do. I always personally am always striving for what I can do better in life, because I go, it is my fault, this is my fault. So Richard resonates me in that way. Like, I always go with my acting work, I'm like, that's not good enough. Why am I not good? Why is the audience not perceiving it this way? What can I do better? Why do I suck? And it also relates to how I feel I look. Like, I feel like if I'm not the best actor, then I have to be the prettiest. And if I'm not the prettiest, then I have to be the best actor. And that never goes away. And that is 1000% how I connected to Richard. And
thank you for sharing that, Kelsey. That definitely came across as a powerful part of your portrayal of Richard.
With Caliban, I think what I related to him most was just that desire to be loved and wanting to be loved, and not so much a loss of identity, but wanting to be loved so bad that you'll put your trust in anybody, and then being shut down and betrayed, and then it becomes harder and harder to put that trust in people and but at the same time, wanting to still be with that person that hurts you, and not realizing that you should not want that person's love, and really figuring out what love actually is, and what it can do for you. And that's something that I really delved into as I was doing my preparation for the role, and that's how I finally began to empathize with Caliban, who again I've always seen as the villain of the Tempest. And I'm like, oh no, this guy's heartbroken, and so finding that within him is how I was able to finally connect with him.
I guess like the thing that I related to the most, or what like would strike a chord with me, it really was that day where I didn't know how to reach him. I've seen people, mainly with addiction, and I've seen that in front of me, and I've seen that kind of effect, and then that fight between being the caregiver that you need to be and also sticking to who you are, that I definitely connected with.
I'll tell you the reason for this question is not to be voyeuristic, not to get up all in your business, is that I spend a lot of time trying to train people, therapists, in empathy, which seems really simple. But one thing I tell them, which apparently is very shocking to them, they're surprised by it, is the short version is empathy hurts. Because now you don't have to go back to an identical pain that the person you're in front of has, but you have to go back into a place of pain where you couldn't reach that person, where you wanted to be loved but weren't, where you screwed up something really bad, where you don't feel good enough. A big reason I do this, and the big reason I signed on to this, is I reach people one by one, literally, one by one. You do it an entirely different way, through an entirely different avenue, through means that I don't understand, that I don't have the training in. And a big part of my involvement and dedication to this is you're going to reach those kids and adults that I'll never be able to. So I want to express my sincere, deeply genuine thanks to each and every one of you for being able to go to those places, because these were painful characters and painful scenes. These weren't softball parts of Shakespeare. These were some of the hardest hitting parts of Shakespeare that you can do, and you went right at them. And there's a quote by the poet and playwright Johann Wolfgang Goethe that says, and I'll paraphrase, "Takes an incredible person to step inside the pain of a stranger." So I'm not only privileged but very honored to be part of this, to be working with you and have worked with you.
This has been great to actually finally discuss all the work we've been doing.
So insightful.
With all of you as well, because we've kind of all been on our own, kind of doing our own work. So to actually be together for once has been a wonderful experience for me.
It's rare that you get an opportunity after you close a show or scene where you get to just talk about the process and how you felt and how it relates to so many different things in real life. So we appreciate the conversation, and we appreciate you as well.
Yeah, who put all these hearts on my sleeves? What the?
Oh my God, my heart's growing too big.
Oh, geez, no.
What's happening?
It's been a great Breakfast Club little thing going on here. Yeah.